Breaking news, guys. The Philadelphia Phillies have acquired Jesus Luzardo in a trade with the Marlins. The Philadelphia Phillies has sent prospect catcher Phil McDonald's in exchange. The Phillies also acquired for catcher Paul Catcher in exchange for prospects Starlin Cuba, Imran Bull. Guys, one of the things is here that Jesus Rodano was only limited for 12 games due to back injuries. But when he's healthy, guys, he had a ERA of 3.12. This is something really interesting, guys. This is pretty much a kind of a big risk because he did have back injuries and he was really limited. But when he's healthy, he's very, very good. He's a left-hander. He's only 27, and but last year last year he only went five. He had a five ERA over 12 starts, and he had any season back injuries. Let's hear more about it.
Hey folks, thanks for checking out the Phillies Talk podcast presented by Team Toyota. I'm Corey Seiden here with you on a Sunday morning just before holiday week as the Phillies make a big trade, pull off a big trade with the Miami Marlins, acquiring left-handed starting pitcher Jesus Luzardo in exchange for two prospects, Starlin Caba, a shortstop who was the Phillies' number 4 prospect according to MLB.com, and outfielder Imarion Boyd, a former 11th rounder. But this is a big addition for the Phillies, potentially their most impactful of the 3 they've made this offseason, of Max Kepler, the outfielder, Jordan Romano, the reliever, and now Luzardo, the starting pitcher. I mean, this is a guy, Luzardo, who in 2022 and 23 looked like he was growing into a top-of-the-rotation arm for the Marlins. You know, he was a top prospect once upon a time with the Nationals, and then he was traded to the A's, and then he was traded to the Marlins. A couple of high-profile deals, but the upside has always been there. It's just a matter of staying healthy for Luzardo. 97-mile-per-hour fastball, a plus changeup, a mid-80s slider. I mean, the Phillies themselves have seen just how tantalizing that package of pitches is. They've really struggled with him the last 5 times they faced him in the regular season. 42 strikeouts and 30 innings over that span for Luzardo against the Phillies lineup. But, you know, he did deal with injury in 2024. That's been a theme of all 3 players the Phillies have added this offseason. Romano missed a lot of time, didn't pitch after late May. Kepler missed a lot of time. And Luzardo had a back injury that kept him off the field from June 16th onward in 2024. But he spoke to Marlins reporters last week and said that he is fully healthy and throwing at 100%. So, you know, Dave Dombrowski mentioned over the weekend that there have been players that the Phillies looked into this fall, who are coming off injury, but the Phillies didn't feel comfortable about their medicals. He was making that point to illustrate that they're not just going after guys who were hurt. You know, there are some guys who were hurt that the Phillies don't feel comfortable pouncing on the risk reward. But with Kepler, with Romano, and now with Luzardo, they've deemed it worthwhile. And quite frankly, if you look at what starting pitchers are making in free agency, it doesn't take much to convince that this could be, you know, huge value for the Phillies. Luzardo has 2 years of club control. He's going to go through the arbitration process 2 more times. He's projected this year to earn about $6 million. And next year, that would rise to like the $11, $12 million range. So that's 2 years of Jesus Luzardo at potentially like $17, $18 million. Incredible value when you compare it to what starting pitchers are making in free agency. Like earlier this offseason, Frankie Montas signed a 2-year, $34 million contract with the Mets. Far less upside and, you know, less of a pitcher than Luzardo, albeit he stayed healthier. Matthew Boyd, who hasn't stayed healthy and doesn't have as much upside as Luzardo, 2 years, $29 million. So you compare those $29 million, $34 million to like the $17 million the Phillies might have to pay Luzardo over the next 2 seasons, you see why this move was so attractive to them. And every dollar matters right now. I wrote at NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com on Friday. I kind of outlined the Phillies payroll situation. I don't want to go into too much of the math because when you hear it just as audio, it's probably difficult to kind of like conceptualize. But the gist of it is the Kepler move brought the Phillies to $299 million as it pertains to the luxury tax. The Luzardo move brings them to about $305 million. There are 4 tiers of the luxury tax: $241 million, $261, $281, $301. The Phillies are now past the 4th and most expensive threshold of $301 million. What this means is that if they want to add anybody else the rest of this offseason, if they don't clear payroll, anybody they add is probably going to be costing them about double. You want to sign a $5 million player? Well, if he's costing you 110 cents on every dollar of overages, that $5 million player is actually worth $10.5 million. That's what he cost you. Now, luxury tax calculations are made after the season, so teams have the ability throughout a season to get under. You see that sometimes. You see that a lot of times at clubs that are like on the vicinity of going over. If they're not actually contending, they'll try to reduce payroll. I don't expect the Phillies to do that barring an absolute catastrophe in 2025, but the payroll is a consideration. The luxury tax penalties are a consideration. It's why the Phillies weren't playing in the market for Juan Soto or Corbin Burns or Max Fried. But this is, a good price on a pitcher who, when he's healthy, can be a number 2 or number 3 starter. Now, the other component of this trade is, the Ranger Suarez factor. Ranger Suarez just last week hired Scott Boras as his agent, and this is a walk year for Ranger Suarez. He's a free agent after 2025. Suarez has definitely seen what these pitchers are making in free agency. He's not going to get $218 million like Max Fried, but Ranger Suarez could make a case to be a $100 million pitcher, $90 million pitcher, probably want like 5 years. And because of those reasons, it's I would say a 50-50 at best proposition that the Phillies are able to keep Suarez long term. And he might not even be worth that $100 million theoretical asking price, right? Like, it's all about what you expect the pitcher to give you, not what he's done over the past 5, 6, 7 years. So this protects the Phillies if they lose Ranger in a year. And it also enables them to, if the right trade offer materializes for Suarez over the next 2 months, they could pounce because they'd still be protected with a solid group of 4 starters in Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez, and Luzardo, with other options in the number 5 spot that you can pick up closer to spring training, or potential internal options, or the idea of Taijuan Walker potentially being able to give you something, which is a long shot but still within the realm of possibility. The other part of Luzardo that stuck out to me in this trade is just like the disparity in workload compared to the other Philly starting pitchers, which is not a bad thing. It's a clear strength that Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola are able to go 200 innings every year. You knock on wood, they're going to be able to do it again in 2025, because the fact that those two have stayed healthy for the Phillies despite carrying those insane, workloads year after year, that's been why the Phillies have been able to be so consistently good over the last 3 seasons. And they just, cross their fingers that nothing happens. But Luzardo, in contrast, doesn't have nearly the number of bullets on his shoulder. His career high is 178 and 2/3 innings. That was back in 2023. But other than that, Luzardo's career high is 100 1/3 innings in the majors. So he's only reached 101 innings one time in his entire career. Less wear and tear than you'd probably expect for a pitcher who's been starting in the majors since 2020. And just like a different profile, like left-handed velocity, more velo than Christopher Sanchez, like a different sort of funkiness to him. And, as we've been saying all offseason, like there weren't ideal offensive solutions out there for the Phillies. Center field was their clearest area to upgrade, but there's nothing out there in center field. The top center field free agent this offseason was Harrison Bader, who's not much of an upgrade over Johan Rojas. Wasn't ideal, in my opinion, to add a left-handed bat in the outfield in Max Kepler. Like, ideally, that would have been a right-handed bat. But again, do you want to pay for Teoscar Hernandez, overpay for Teoscar Hernandez? You want to give him 5 years, $90 million, or whatever that contract's going to end up being? These are short-term moves for a team that had an inflexible payroll and an inflexible roster. We've talked for 2 years now about how the Phillies don't have positions on the diamond to upgrade because they're locked in at catcher, first base, second base, third base, shortstop, right field. No longer the case after 2025. Wrote this at NBC Sports Philly over the weekend that while the payroll situation is difficult right now, it does clear up after this season because you have Schwarber coming off the books, JT Realmuto coming off the books. You have $18.5 million of Romano and Kepler coming off the books. Now, obviously, the Phillies should look to retain Schwarber, and maybe they'll look to retain JT Realmuto as well. Two very important pieces of this whole thing. But just to illustrate, there was nothing coming off the books this offseason. All you had was $7 million of Whit Merrifield, half-season salaries of Estevez and Austin Hayes, and $2.2 million of Jeff Hoffman. So you had all these players for the Phillies who were becoming more expensive without really trimming anything off the books. And that's why they were in this predicament this winter. But to come out of it with Luzardo, Kepler, and Romano, I don't know. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's also it's not a bad offseason. I mean, these are three talented players. Okay, best case scenario would be that all three stay healthy, that Luzardo gives you 32 starts, that Romano ends up being your closer, and that Kepler plays a full season and hits like 260 with a 500 slugging percentage, hits you like 25 homers, does damage against righties. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario would be that they all get hurt and the Phillies are looking back to this offseason and wishing they did more and wishing they added more depth. There's still 2 months to go before spring training, but calculated risks. 3 players coming off injury, the back for Luzardo, Kepler, missed a lot of time, had a down year. That's why these players were available for the price tags they were available for. And there's also incentive to all of these guys to perform. Kepler and Romano are going to be back on the market next year. If they don't play well, they're not going to get paid. Jesus Luzardo still hasn't gotten his big payday yet. It's 2 years away. He wants to show this team that he belongs, that he's worth it, and that he's going to be worth the money someday. So, there's more incentive to be gained from a player who has something to lose than there is when you pay a guy and guarantee all that money. I'm not saying that, players get fat and happy every single time, but there is validity to the whole contract year argument. Where do the Phillies go from here? Dave Dombrowski did say over the weekend that they ideally want to add a swingman pitcher, like a guy who could start or relieve someone of the Spencer Turnbull ilk, for example. Turnbull cost the Phillies just a couple $1 million last year, and in the first half of the season showed his value being able to start and relieve. But again, I don't think that's going to be an expensive signing. You're probably looking at things closer to spring training, value buys late in the game there, $1 million here, $2 million there, a minor league signing. You could pick up a couple of those guys toward the end when camp gets closer to compete for the number 5 spot. And lastly, in this trade, the Phillies give up Starlin Caba. That's the price they pay. They paid a prospect package. They're not paying the wild free agent cost, but they're paying the prospect package. Caba was regarded as their number 4 prospect by MLB.com. I think he was ranked in like the 80s league-wide. But he was 19 years old. He played at single A this past season. Caba was not going to help the Phillies for a handful of years. This is a win-now team, so it makes sense to make a win-now move, and they were able to hold on to all 3 of their top prospects, Andrew Painter, shortstop Aiden Miller, and outfielder Justin Crawford. There were reports that the Phillies were offering the White Sox Miller and Crawford for Garrett Crochet. Would you rather give up Miller and Crawford for Crochet or Starlin Caba for Jesus Luzardo? That's a question that'll be answered on the field over the next 2 years, but the Phillies certainly got better on Sunday morning. Thanks a lot for checking out this emergency edition of the Phillies Talk Podcast. Have a great holiday week, everybody. Talk soon.
All right, guys. I'm glad y'all heard about it. This is a very interesting move from the Phillies, I guess, since they got option out from the Japanese Phantom guys. I guess they went for the lefty from the Marlins ace. Like I say, he's very good when he's healthy. He's a tremendous pitcher. He's one of the top pitchers when healthy. He's But let's see what also brings into that, because I'm very curious now if he can stay healthy. Hopefully he can stay healthy, guys. Hopefully this is very interesting move for the Phillies. Hopefully everything goes very well for this move. And let me know who won in this trade, guys. Let me know in the comments if you feel like the Marlins won this trade or the Phillies won in this trade. Who were the bigger winners? In your you're a Philly fan, guys. Tell me the thoughts how you really feel about this, because they give up a big package of good prospects for the Marlins to the Marlins. So you tell me in the comments below what you guys think. And this was your big, and this is your Tino. This is your boy Tino with the Chicago Cubs. Like I said, we're not only just telling news about the Cubs, trades, moves, and all that. We're telling moves about everybody, guys. This is the breaking news, guys. You gotta get into this, guys. This is big news. This is just happened not too long ago. Let me know what you guys think. Also, guys, with the trade with the Philadelphia Phillies and the Marlins, they're just waiting on finalize on medical reports to finalize this trade. This is a big deal because the guy, they had an ending season with back injuries. I hope he's healthy this season. But like I said, this is gonna become a big. This is a big trade for the Philadelphia Phillies. They're being quiet all season. This is a big splash for them, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you guys really think about this trade, and who's the winners, who are the losers, and what you should have suggested, or who do you think that Phillies should have gone for, or you really like this trade. Let me know in the comments below, guys. See you on the next video, guys. This was your boy Tino.